Right, here we are. This is the first episode of the Carbs Won't Make You Fat podcast. I'm here with Nick and Josh, and today's episode is all about why we do nutrition coaching. We're all going to tell you our own little story. It's going to be a little three-way panel interview. Hopefully that helps you to get to know us and kicks off the podcast. It's our first ever time doing a podcast, so ultimately we're going to suck at it. We're going to keep pressing on. We're going to get better as we go. That's basically how you get good at anything in life, and probably big takeaway for that in nutrition as well. Why we're here? Well, the podcast is all about debunking shit nutrition advice, presenting stuff to you in a way that you say, oh, I get that. That makes sense. Because nutrition isn't that complicated. There's a lot of nuance, but we're here to help you see through all that and give you the clearest possible solution for what you need. So without further ado, we're all going to talk a little bit about why we're here, why we do nutrition coaching. What we'll do, we'll start off. Nick, you're going to have a little chat to Josh, and you guys are going to get to know each other.
That sounds quite nice. It sounds quite nice, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Very good. Yeah. So I think, as you were saying, Tim, it's a good opportunity for us all to kind of like start from the ground up, as it were, in terms of why we're here and that kind of thing. So I think, a good way to start is kind of with you, Josh, is, how did you, it sounds a bit nonsense, but how did you get into fitness, if that makes sense? Sure. What was your starting?
Starting point was probably late teens, early 20s, was just wanting to have an aesthetic appearance change, and started getting into working out. Didn't really know much about it, would just follow things that I saw in men's health magazines and things like that. YouTube fitness content was probably in its infancy around that sort of time, less than what it is now. And so I was doing that for a few years. Food wise, my family has been in catering for all of my life, and so I've kind of grown up around people cooking from scratch, and so learning stuff from my mum and dad, and then going down different recipe books that I'd find, trying different things out. But as it pertains to supporting your goals in recovery from training, I knew fuck all, really. And then I got to about 22, and my dad mentioned, have you heard of this thing called CrossFit? Which I hadn't, so I Googled it, and I thought that looks cool. Found a box near where I was and did a trial session. Got the bug for that, and then started training there with a mix of Globo Gym stuff and then CrossFit, but then went fully into CrossFit and eventually Olympic weightlifting recreationally. And then kind of drunk the Kool-Aid with that as well, because the two main ways of eating they were marketing was paleo or zone, and I went more down the paleo route, which like when majority of people start off on eating a standard diet and then they go to maybe an exclusionary diet or a whole food focused diet, they'll feel that initial benefit. But if you're again excluding carbohydrates, which are necessary for your performance in a performance-based training or sport, you're going to feel shit if you don't have them in there.
Just for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what a paleo diet is, how would you sum it up for someone who wasn't sure what it was?
Paleo, short for Paleolithic. So more closest thing would be a ketogenic diet, so very low carb. You'd be mostly eating meat, nuts, seeds, maybe some dairy and some vegetables and leafy greens and things like that. But I think they throw in sweet potato here and there, but majority of the time it was there wasn't like rice or potatoes. Or I might be butchering the definition of paleo.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And so when I was a teenager, I was one weight, and I remember a conversation my mum had with the health, like whoever's responsible for health stuff at school, saying, "We think Josh is overweight," and my mum went, "Fuck off! He's 13,
response. That's
13 or 14," and so I like have a growth spurt and then end up being over 6 foot, but still the same weight. So I was about 88 kilos when I started training, and then down to the coach that I had at the CrossFit gym, who was very much had more of a strength bias rather than metcons and things like that. Although they did feature a little bit, it was much more about getting people stronger. He suggested, right, start eating carbs, supplement appropriately with creatine and protein shakes when necessary and things like that. Kind of keep eating the way you're eating with the relation to dairy and meat and things like that, and then just incorporate carbs in. And over a gradual period of time, body weight started going up, started getting stronger. Recovery was way better.
Oh yes.
And then that just kept on going throughout, really. And there was only one point that I started, because I didn't drink alcohol for about 9 or 10 years as well. Mainly because it just didn't fit my lifestyle, and also a slight intolerance to hops. But it was more the lifestyle factor that I didn't really align with. But it kind of got to a point where I may have had a mild form of orthorexia, which led me thinking, right, that's not clean, that's clean, and making me slightly more judgmental about other people's choices. If I was on an evening out with friends or just people watching in a restaurant or whatever, I'd start analyzing what they're eating and thinking, you shouldn't be eating that. But then, since then, have relaxed things a little bit, because it's like you stated at the beginning of the pod, it's a lot more nuanced, but still the core principles of it are very simple, and that's basically what I stick to now.
It's quite surprising how many people experience the same thing in terms of they get into, I say in comments, get into fitness, and they start to take more of an interest in eating nutritionally and healthily. But it's surprising how quickly that can throw someone to the other end of the spectrum. Yeah. And like you said, it all becomes very, I must eat this clean food and not touch that bad food. And it becomes a very segmented, and,
yeah,
it's almost as, dare I say, unhealthy as the other end. It's kind of, you're just going from one extreme to the other. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Would you say that the turning point in your nutrition was the advice from, was it the person in your box that was talking about?
Yeah, it was. And then listening to different podcasts, reading different books, and then it was around before the pandemic, I was expressing an interest in doing a nutrition course, and the CrossFit gym I was at the time, one of the coaches there had done precision nutrition, and so got a referral from her to do the course, and then did that throughout 2020 and completed it during the pandemic. And again, it was a lot of the stuff in there I kind of already knew, but then there was some other things that just needed to be reiterated and or delved a little bit deeper. And that gave me a better understanding. And a lot of the time during the pandemic, like most of the time I spent either working out in the garage or my garden or cooking food. And one of the biggest concerns was from particularly my mum, was like, we're locked down. How's Josh going to eat? Is he going to eat us? Because he eats a lot of food. That's the longest time she'd been around, like seeing how I go through my day and things like that. And she was quite surprised that it wasn't actually that much volume of food. It was just the quality and, to a degree, the quantity that I was consuming. And I never really tracked stuff, even like when it came down to macros or calories. When I was in the process of bulking, I was just adding a homemade mass gainer shake 2 or 3 times a week before I went to bed during that time. But then in later years, I just tracked what I had, and it would vary a little bit, but the majority of the things would remain consistent. Namely, being protein being a priority at every meal, and depending on what the activities of that day were, backfilling that with carbs and some fat as well. And that's generally my rule of thumb from now, and kind of what I prescribe for people that I work with too.
Yeah. How much would you say? Because when did you complete the BTN?
I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle.
Middle. I remember now. Yeah.
Second assessment.
So yeah, just for a bit of context, those people listening, we Nick and I have been through the BTN Academy, level 4 qualified nutrition coaches. Josh is in the process of doing that, so we've sort of almost been through that journey a little bit ourselves. But is like subtly different to precision nutrition.
Yeah,
it's a little bit more. PN do an advanced course. I'd imagine it has a lot of similar.
Yeah, so I did the level 1, but so far with the BTN stuff, it's kind of probably ties into the second question as well of the biggest revelation from BTN and how it's affected coaching and education, and the level of detail they go in physiologically and biologically, and the mental side of things as well. Is quite a brief touch on neuroscience, but it's enough to make you better understand people that have bad relationships with food, and particularly with reduced dopamine reactions as well. I know it's not the only thing that is the factor in people gaining weight and maybe getting obese or anything like that, but it's an important run on the ladder as to why they get into those sorts of positions, which is not something I've really delved into before. Kind of reading the material from that and then dipping into a podcast of like Andrew Huberman, for example, gets into that even deeper, and some of it I'm scratching my head about, but there's little shiny bits I can pick out and just assimilating that into my own thinking and that as well.
Yeah, it's funny you touch on the dopamine thing with food, because it was something that they said peaked a lot during the lockdowns, wasn't it? Where you take everyone's kind of hobbies and interests away, and all of a sudden, all you've really got in your day to look forward to is breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And then I think we all saw it with, lockdowns. There was, you could buy takeaways, or you could buy a meal box from someone. You could do, the meals became more and more elaborate, but then activity sort of went down and down and down. And these meals were the only sort of source of joy for, I mean, what was 100%. It, in a year, 2 years, or whatever it was. So I think that's kind of, it plays an important role, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So I guess time to take over a little bit, and similar questions to you, Nick. Like, so you're a qualified nutrition coach, but you're not a practicing nutrition coach in terms of working with people, although you are coaching people for free every week. I think you post about weekly on your social media.
Weekly at the moment,
Every week, Nick's putting out incredible content on his social media, really useful, breaking it down for people. So just where does that come from for you? And what's sparking that love for nutrition?
So I think I'll kind of do a bit of a run back to the start, if I may.
Yeah.
So mine all kind of started in a bit of a strange way, and I'll go a bit deep just for you guys.
Oh, please do.
Back when I was early 20s, I can't remember the exact age, mid-20s, something like that. I kind of went through a period of anxiety, depression, and that kind of thing. And it's kind of been with me in my life, but at that point, it kind of really did creep up a lot more than you'd want it to. I can remember going to the doctors and, having the talks and that kind of thing. And, they were great, but it was all very much, here's some medication, take this. And, got the prescription and went off to the pharmacy and picked up the drugs they prescribed me. And ironically, I looked at the symptoms on the medication, and it said, you'll have bad dreams, you'll lose weight, you'll do this, and it was the list of side effects was horrific. And then ironically, my own anxiety caused me not to take anxiety drugs, which is a bit weird. And I got to a point where I was living with my parents at the time, and I had some old Argos dumbbells, in the dining room, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and give them a go. I haven't done it for a while. I'll go and pick them up, and I'll see what I can, get on with. And I can remember just feeling good afterwards. I just felt better. I felt a bit more clear-headed, that kind of thing. And then over the years, it's just really spiraled from there. It's just kind of, it then built me up to go into a gym. And then the more you go to the gym, I think as Josh was saying, you go through these stages of, I won't have carbs on non-training days, and I'll do this, and I'll all these kind of random things that you pick up on. I blame men's health, but once you kind of get into working out and really kind of seeing it as a positive in your life, you start to then say, well, what can I do to help fuel those workouts?
Yeah. How can I do this thing better?
It just kind of snowballed into an interest and that kind of thing. And I think this is sometimes why, I preach to everyone, just give exercise a go, give exercise and focusing on your diet a go. I can't, it should be prescribed, and I think they talked about it, being prescribed on the NHS. They were going to prescribe gym memberships, and I fully support that. But yeah, that kind of led to the wanting to learn more, and then I think we got into lockdown. I'd already done the BTN Foundation course, which was, for anyone listening, is the one before. What do they call the main one?
The Practical Academy, isn't it?
That's the Practical Academy. So I think it's like a foundation course, which is very good. So it's a great starting point in terms of if you want to just, start.
If you don't want to be a coach, it's an incredible
to get an understanding.
Foundations of it,
The knowledge in there is unbelievable. So I'd already done the startup one, and it got to lockdown. I was just thinking, I need something to do. Because lockdown was in, it was dark. It was, I was thinking, right, when I finish work, because I've got a normal day job in the day, I need something to focus on outside of it. So I thought, you know what, I'll take on the BTN course, and where it leads, who knows? But if I don't do anything with it, I'll have the knowledge. If I do something with it, I'll have the knowledge. So either way, I'm winning. Picked it up, and then didn't look back. But I think that I then kind of chose to then start up my Instagram page as a way of kind of helping other people. And we see the shit that is out there, and we see
Jesus H. Christ.
Yeah. we see the whole thing of influencers, I feel, because there's this, you can't be boring on Instagram or social media because you just get lost in the noise. So what you find is that everyone's trying to make it more and more and more complex. But all we're doing is we're pushing the starting point away from people. Because people then try and jump in, and they're hearing about, I've got to monitor my glucose, or I can't eat grapes because that's a score 70, and I've got to have a pear because that's a 6. It's like, what are we telling people? What is this? So I'm trying to kind of get content out there that is just if you don't know and you don't have any kind of knowledge, check my page out. This isn't, I'm not going for followers. I'm just saying, check my page out. If there's just stuff in there that might help you, it might just make you go, oh yeah, fair play. And it might just give you that first step into wanting to know more. And then you can either contact me or contact any of us and find out. So I don't, that was a long-winded way of saying I don't coach at the moment. But I just enjoy putting that content out there for people for free. And if they want to contact me, I'm more than happy to talk to people. And and
this is like this is the whole point of this podcast. Is like you summarized it really nicely, Nick. That used to be maybe a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago, when Instagram was fresh and it wasn't as polished as it is now. There are a bunch of people on there giving out loads of really helpful information. No doubt there are loads of shysters on there giving out terrible information, but that educational content rose to the top because people were interested in it and it had like some power. Now, when people are like dancing and all this stuff that goes with it, there's zero room for context. You can get like a minute 30 is the most context that you can get, which is why. And I've gone big into my Instagram. I've gone similar route to Nick, very educational, quite dry in places. I'm not very good at being on camera and being funny. I'm probably all right with my mates, but like I'm never going to be able to present that's no one's watching that. Whereas on this podcast, we get the chance to be more nuanced, and actually a lot of the nuance has already come out. And when you have this advanced knowledge of nutrition, we don't then go say to people all the advanced shit that we know. We distill it into the simplest possible bit, which is very simple, and Josh has talked about that already. If you look at any of Nick's posts, really simple, and often people are like really like, oh wow, I love what you do, that's so simple. And to us, like as coaches, we're like, is it? Like, but
yeah,
people are really lost with it. Like, and it always hits me as I'm like, shit, like, oh right, you actually like you didn't know that. And that's cool. Like that's so powerful to be able to help people like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's just people are so confused. And I think it's funny because when I started doing this, when I was mid-20s, I sound old, but like social media wasn't a thing. So there was
don't worry, it wasn't for me either.
So there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was nothing like this. So it's funny that Josh was just talking about men's health.
Yeah
Because men's health was for guys wanting to start in a gym. That's where you went for your knowledge. But the funny thing is that we all say Instagram tries to make everything shiny and fun to get attention. If you remember men's health back in the day,
still is.
Look at the cover. 6-pack in 6 weeks, and all this kind of. It was the same thing, but just in paper form. So I think that level's always been there, but it just seems to have got worse and worse recently.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right, I bet. I
should ask Tim the question. So,
yeah, go on then.
When did you get into fitness?
I guess I was like a late developer. I guess like when I was quite young, like under 10, I wasn't a particularly fit kid. I was never on the sports team. Like we moved town, started a new school, and the head teacher was a guy called Bledwin Jones, who actually who captained Wales back in the day, which I didn't know at the time. But he still, well, I don't know whether he does it anymore, but he commentates on all the Leicester Tigers games. So I was in middle of rugby union country. It's a little tubby little kid, and he took one look at me and was like, "Yep, you're playing rugby," which I loved. Like, got involved in a sport like at a young age. Like, you could play contact at that age back then, which you probably can't now. But that was fun as well. Like, just in a like nice, safe environment. Really enjoyed that without having to need to be particularly fit because I was a little kid. Played that going through school, and then I had a growth spurt, and I was no longer a prop. But I could only play prop. I couldn't really kick a ball and I couldn't run very quick. So rugby soon became not my game. And then I took up cricket instead. Then I went to university. Big change when you go to university. You're fending for yourself a little bit. Joined the gym. Well, no, I didn't join the gym straight away. Met a bunch of guys who were like more into fitness than me. Wanted to use the gym. Fumbling around with the machines and stuff, didn't really get on. Like, ironically, Josh's boss used to be one of the young PTs in that gym back then. I remember that distinctly. I remember my mates taking me in there, tried the barbell bench press with literally just the bar. It buried me, couldn't get it off my chest. Right. Back end of university, like that whole experience is like completely changing for you anyway. You just discover yourself as a new person. Got better at fitness just through perseverance, got more into like circuit training side of things. Went away traveling. Just before I went away traveling, I was dating a dietitian at the time. He was, and like she was a first year dietitian, so probably still a little bit like not masses of knowledge, but just like, you eat that every fucking day. Jesus H Christ. Like, come on. Like, did you know the risk of colorectal cancer is phenomenal if you just don't eat your veg? Surely you could eat your veg with that in mind. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Is this what she was telling you
as a
Wowzers, that
yeah, right, but like
is
in
a- on a dinner date out.
right, no, just like he's like, how many multi-packs of crisps do you go through a day? Come on.
Yeah.
And then I went traveling. Actually, I went to New Zealand on my own, and I'd already like that kind of sunk in a little bit for a few months, and I was like, I've always wanted to be a bit fitter, a bit more in shape. Like maybe this is this is going to help, isn't it? It's been the missing piece that I've known all along. Let's try and do something. And I went to New Zealand on my own, backpacking, minimal budget to do anything. Fending for myself food wise. So I walked every day because that was something to do when I wasn't hanging out with my mates. Drank a little bit, but we couldn't afford to drink loads. And I bought the cheapest foods in the supermarket, mostly fruits and vegetables, and drank plenty of water because I couldn't afford fancy drinks. And I came back and all my mates were like, shit, you've lost a load of weight. I was like, and then that kind of, I think that hit like a little reset button for me. And then like I was already all right at doing like circuit training and stuff, and there was like quality environment with like all my mates were doing it. Everyone was like really supportive, which is a great thing about, like, one of my friends was asking me earlier any advice for joining a gym. I was like, find one where the environment is class, like people are staying behind and chatting to each other, they're helping each other out. Then like it's less of a barrier because it's just this thing where everyone's in it together. That then kind of snowballed, got more into strength training because then I knew all the PTs and I was like, I want to try free weights, but I'm shit at them. So it's literally like, can you show me and help me? Yeah, of course we can. That's our job. Like, and then it spirals. Then I started reading more about it, website articles back in the day. I actually had nutrition coaching from someone, got in pretty decent shape, but probably set myself up as a bit of a disordered eater for a while. Got myself out of that a little bit. Discovered Ben Coomber, who founded BTN, who's the person we studied under, basically, and eventually ended up doing the BTN to just be like, oh, I am really super interested in nutrition because I've gone all in on this. Learned about it, never really wanted to do that for a living, but through the course, they're basically like, when you get onto the advanced, the second academy, they're like, right, guys, go coach this to a bunch of people. You know enough, go coach it because that helps you to learn. And then from there, I started getting to help people set up my coaching business. And then I turned from being an engineer into a PT. And here I am stood today.
It's quite a jump.
Yeah. Quite a jump. Yeah.
Engineering to coaching.
Yeah. Very different. Although, yeah, I love it. So
what was the specialty in engineering?
I was a mechanical engineer, but I worked for an industrial gases company. So yeah, very, very, very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
It's funny how no, it's not funny, but there's an element of, you mentioned there, Tim, about sort of a bit of disordered eating.
Yeah.
Josh, you mentioned a bit of orthorexia. And I think there's a bit of that in, I suppose it's a bit of a generalization. Is there a bit of that in sort of everyone who has a bit of a focus? And it is almost, like I said previously, it's almost like you kind of yourself goes too far with it. And then you find your level and you come back and, you know.
I think in any journey, it's quite natural to overcorrect.
Yeah.
And sometimes to get a few people get themselves into a little bit of disordered eating. Some is much worse than others. Mine wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. If you don't live through that, you don't know what it's like. So like actually coming out the other side, and that journey is hard at the time, but it makes you the person that you are. And then as a coach, it makes it easier for me to coach people who are in that same position because I've been there.
Yeah, you can empathize.
That's not saying that you have to go there. Like, you just have to be empathetic. Like, that's fine. But yeah, 100%. And sometimes you think you just want to be like the optimal way of everything. Can you kind of like put the shutters down a little bit and don't think about the broader context?
Yeah. But I think that was sort of one of the misunderstandings that I had coming into fitness, was that there were good and bad calories. Yeah. So I was sometimes in that mindset of going, where it doesn't matter how much, I don't know, like chicken I eat, because that's good.
Yeah.
Whereas you were really focused on sort of how much chocolate you were having, and you go, yeah, that's quite a But that was drilled into a lot of people, you know, when I was first coming 100%. Into it. You know, these are good calories and you'll be fine eating this, and actually if you eat that, then you'll undo all the good side. And it's not a good way to live.
And I think,
splitting the foods into good and bad, and
not at all. And that's like a massive part of me and my coaching philosophy when it comes to nutrition. But because of my background, so I got coached nutrition by a really good nutrition coach. Like, the fact that I ended up with a disordered relationship with food was not their fault. They did everything right. Like, but ultimately he's communicating with me via email. He's not living with me. So like I'm making the choices. It was very like bodybuilder style of approach, where you focus on counting macros rather than calories, which is still calories, but you're like focusing on protein, carbs, and fats, and hitting a range of those. Quite an advanced tactic, but helps you to learn a bunch about food. So actually being all in on that and knowing that's got so much protein and that's got so many carbs in, then enables you later down the line to be like, oh yeah, that's high protein, that's low carb, whatever. And you can kind of be more intuitive from being really dialed in. The problem is I kept being really, really dialed in. And then actually when you're just tracking macros, it's like, oh, that Snickers bar doesn't really fit into this nice macro split. And then I was like, right, I've had enough of counting macros. It's too like, and I did it for a long time and I was good at it. And I was like, no, come on, this must be simpler. So then I just went into almost the other end. Right. So you're just going to go eat a bunch of like really healthy, wholesome foods. I won't call them clean, but that's probably what people would refer to them as. And then I have like one afternoon, like a Sunday afternoon, I just eat what I like. 2 weeks, that was a fantastic idea. Then every Saturday, I from midday until 2 o'clock in the morning would just be everything I could lay my hands on. Not good.
Yeah.
Then I was like, right, okay, maybe I just keep it as simple as calories. And then all the stuff that I was avoiding throughout the week because I couldn't fit it into a bracket, after about a month, if that, I didn't crave it anymore. I just had it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, I still have ice cream pretty much every day. That was my biggest thing in that period.
Have you got a Ninja Creamy yet, by the way?
No, what's that?
It's you know the brand Ninja that makes kitchen appliances.
Oh, so
they've got an ice cream maker and it looks fantastic.
Gee whiz.
I'm liking what Josh is doing here, dropping in product names in case they're listening. We'll all get sent one next week and we'll all be reviewing it.
Excellent, yeah. If Ferrari made one, that would be amazing as well.
Yeah.
That does sound good. And like one of the other things, just quickly, I learned in that period was like I was slamming myself in the gym, eating nothing, making no progress, and like normalizing feeling like shit. And then when I finally got myself round to being like, I did like a bulking program, and the coach was like, to everyone, he was like, right, where are calories this week? Okay, right, next week, eat 200 more calories. And we're like, well, what about what our results? He's like, I don't care. Eat 200 more calories. Your workout will be better. And all right, okay, go back in the next week. Oh God, that was easier. Good lads. Right, eat 200 more. And this like handbrake comes off. And that's why Josh's coach was like, eat more carbs, feel that performance. And actually your body changes more positively because you work harder.
Yeah, definitely great. But I think that sometimes if someone's been on the journey of weight loss or weight management, having someone kind of open the gate, a lot of people do tend to shy away from that and find that a bit of a concerning. People are scared of calories sometimes. I mean, try and take the gate away. People just go, no, I'm okay. I know where I am. This seems to be working. I don't want to move too much. But it's like you said, if you want to fuel those workouts and you're doing, big workouts, especially if you're doing like CrossFit and stuff like that, you do need the right fuel to go into that.
Yeah, 100%.
But for anyone listening, we can kind of sit here and, sound like gym boys and all this kind of stuff. But I just want to put it out there that when I first started in the gym, I would never train in front of the mirror. I would never go in the free weights area. Used to hate it. Used to absolutely hate seeing myself working out. Would never do it. Now, just over the years, you get more and more into it. But I'm still someone who's probably quite rare. And you guys might swear at me for this. I don't squat. I don't deadlift. I don't do any, all this kind of stuff that apparently gym boys do and this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a way of going, if you're on the fence and you're listening to this about, I want to go to the gym, I want to give it a go, but I don't feel that I can squat, I don't feel like I can deadlift. I don't.
No.
I go and it's about, flexibility, movement, trying to, ward off the aches and pains later in life.
Yeah.
So it's just to say that if you are kind of on the fence, but you're feeling a bit wary about it, go and do you. Go and do what you want to do. And, there's no one set workout for everyone. Just find what works for you and go and do it.
And if you're worried about going to the gym, like it's the people that work there's job to make you feel welcome in there. Be like, I don't want to be here. I'm really scared of going up into that area. I haven't got a fucking clue what that machine does. I don't even know what the etiquette is in here. 99.9% of PTs are going to take you under their wing. They're going to look after you. They're going to show you around, make you feel welcome. Remember your name the next time you come in. Just definitely give it a go. And also doing new stuff is scary.
Yeah.
It's going to suck for the first few times. And then
there's definitely no harm in, trying a gym. If you don't like it, try another one. I went to a gym once and I walked in and it was just a lot of powerlifters drinking from old milk cartons, slapping each other on the back and the bums, and just the noises that were coming out of them as they were lifting. I was like, do you know what? This ain't the gym for me. This isn't for me. So you just go to another one. You just, you go to different ones until you find one that works. And then, it's like you said, when you do find that one that works and you have that sort of little community in there, you'll just enjoy going and it'll snowball. There's my words of wisdom for today.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I guess just to finish on the whole gym thing, a load of people are like, shit, what do people think of me? While I'm doing this, I'm butchering this exercise, haven't got a clue. Genuinely, most people got their headphones in trying to get their workout done. They're not bothered. Some people, especially ladies, there might be some guys staring at you. That's not cool. That happens. It's really shit. That's not good. But the rest of the people, about half of them, if you walked up to them and asked them, they'd love to help you. And the other half probably aren't competent enough to help you and are feeling very similar themselves. But there isn't anybody in that gym who's actively following you around thinking, God, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And if there are, join a different gym. That's not the culture that you want to be involved in anyway.
No.
Yeah, put it quite well.
Right, so where to go with next? I reckon, so from what we've said, I'm going to pick out something from what Nick said in terms of our own journey and what stands out to each other. From what Nick said, for me, every one of us has had a slightly different experience with health, fitness, nutrition. We've all gone out there and done the thing, tried a bunch of things. A few things haven't worked. A few things have stuck. We've done more of the stuff that's stuck. And we've all ended up with being reasonably happy with where we are with our health and fitness. So I think for me, that's my take-home message from this, from what we've talked about.
Are we all doing a take-home message?
We are, yeah. Go on, Nick.
There we go. I think the take-home message is, I think, like we said, all of us, by the sounds of it, has had some form of mental health, or there's been some element of that between everyone. And I think it's just possibly even if someone's listening to this, and sorry for going back to sort of the gym thing, but if you see someone new in the gym, or a family member comes to you and says, I'm thinking of trying this diet, just understand where they might be coming from. Just understand that 100%. They may be going through a point in their life where they may be wanting to make that change. And I feel sometimes that when people kind of put their head above the trenches and say, I want to try something new, or try this or try that, they can sometimes be shot down by friends, family, or whatever. And it's just maybe sometimes just encourage them. Just give them a few words and go, look, do you know what? That's great.
And
I'm here
like,
if you want to, I'm here if you want to chat
100%.
about it or whatever.
And then what you learn as a coach is actually getting started is the hardest bit. So if that person's doing something that's suboptimal, but it's still going to get them somewhere, crack on. Like, I've had a bunch of people I've talked to with like, one interested in working with me as a coach, and they turn around and go, no, I want to go join Weight Watchers. Fine.
Yeah.
Go get started. There'll be a community there that supports you. Is it the way that I would do it? No. That's cool. You want to get started, you're motivated to start, go start. Don't let me be the barrier to you starting.
This is something that I've tried to sort of get across on my own Instagram profile is there's a massive thing out there just bashing Slimming World, and some would say for perfectly good reason.
Sure.
And I agree. Like, their methods aren't perfect, but there isn't really any method that's perfect. And if someone comes to me and says, do you know what, I want to start my journey on this, and I feel that my starting point is Slimming World, instead of standing there and going, that's a load of shit, don't do that, to which point someone's just going to recoil and go, oh, well, I don't know what else to do. Encourage them. It's like you said, there'll be a community. Follow me, because I've put a post on this, and I've tried to give you like the pros and cons of it and all this kind of stuff.
Do a great breakdown of all of them.
Go into it with your eyes open. And if it's what you want to do, great. Get into it and go and nail it. But just be aware of what you're doing. And it's fine, whatever your starting point is, just start.
Brilliant. Go on, Josh.
Yeah, no, it's kind of just building off of what Nick was just saying is just more recently I've been trying to change my disposition about certain things as it pertains to work or nutrition or training and things like that, because like you say, you can get very set in your ways, and it goes back to what you were mentioning in your story, Tim, about before you're traveling to New Zealand's following the very more macro focused way of eating, and then having probably your own version of orthorexia too. And that's been the main take home thing. I mean, other than the nutrition stuff and study material that I'm going through, I dip into Stoicism and some psychology stuff as well. And the thing I like about that, it's particularly like the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, is daily things, small actionable things that you can actually do. Because anyone listening or anyone wanting to start on a health and wellness journey or whatever you want to call it, it can initially be incredibly overwhelming. There it is.
So like really good book. So 365 lessons, one for every day of the year. I've had it for a few years and I haven't finished, but so what he does is take the writings of the Stoics from sort of Rome era and modernize it, so you get the Stoic quote, and then he kind of explains that relevance in terms of the history, and then like aligns it to today. So he talks about like stuff like social media and stuff, which obviously the Stoics didn't have, but really good book, like really good.
Yeah, like I was saying, it's just giving you small things that you can go, oh, I get that. And like what you do, Nick, with your social media posts is taking what often people would consider a very complex subject and breaking it down for them in digestible chunks, and then they can then take that and try to action it in their life. And so that is the purpose of this pod in a nutshell, really.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is, like you touched on it there, Josh, like mindset around things is huge. And I always say it is like when I do nutrition talks and nutrition presentations to people, I'm like, it is as simple on a physiological level, so what goes on inside the body, as calories in versus calories out. Outside of that, it isn't, because you need behavior and lifestyle in check before you even have the right to think about that. So if your life's a car crash, you're not sleeping, stressed to the hilt, like that's when calories in, calories out isn't working, because there's a bunch of other stuff that needs to be fixed. And did the mental health first aider training a while ago, and they talk about everybody as a continuum of their mental health. One end is not so good, one end is really good. Everyone's somewhere between those two extremes, and that changes from time to time. And they talk about like the stress bucket, which is too much stress affects that continuum for everyone, whether you've got a diagnosed condition or whether you're just more on the healthier side of the mental health spectrum. Too much stress affects where you are in that spectrum. So you've got to go find a bunch of things to do to relieve that stress. They talk about this bucket. The stress is the rain coming in the top. The things you do to relieve it are all the holes drilled into it.
Right.
You don't have enough holes, the bucket overflows. If you look up like Google Mind stress bucket, you'll find it. Exercise is one of those things. Could be going for a walk, could be getting a dog, could be like playing with the kids, hanging out with the family, could be going out for a big meal. Like there's a whole social thing around it. It could be a number of things, but it's having a bunch of tools in that box to unlock that. And then nutrition becomes easier. And it's almost always, if nutrition's hard, some of it's knowledge, but a lot of it is that other stuff that's going on, which takes
other stuff that's circling around.
Mindset and
Definitely.
application. Yeah.
Right.
Almost sounded quite a witty way to round that point up there, Tim. That's very good.
Got away with that. I did that in that wasn't even planned. That wasn't even planned. So I think that's a good start. Hopefully everyone listening has got to know us a little bit more. Just to say that we are going to do a weekly pod. It's going to be Josh and I weekly. Nick's going to be monthly. Nick is going to be like our roving reporter in the field. We'll kind of come bring some specific topics with Nick. Josh and I will have a few. We'll probably, in the next episode, we're going to talk about what's in Josh's cooler bag, which is Josh got asked when he first started his internship at the gym he's working about what's in his cooler bag and how some people thought that was a bit weird that he'd bring his lunch to work, which...
Well, they don't have a fridge there, so I had to improvise.
Exactly that. So that's a little teaser of what we're doing next time. Until next time, we'll wrap the pod up there. And remember, carbs won't make you fat, but calories might.
Wait.
Cheers, guys.
Good to be with you.
Right, that was our very first podcast episode. As I said right at the start of it, we are going to suck at podcasting until we get some skin in the game, we get some practice. It's the same with literally anything new that you do. Apply that to your nutrition as well. Be kind to yourself. Learn as you go. About us, again, I'm Tim. I was joined by Josh and Nick. We are 3 BTN Nutrition Academy graduates. We're all holding or working towards a level 4 qualification in nutrition coaching, which means we're evidence-based nutrition coaches. So we'll give you nutrition advice that's factual and actually works without overcomplicating things, trying to sell you expensive solutions that don't work. We are literally here to help you apply the science in the most sensible way. Be sure to go follow us all over on Instagram. You can find me at Food Flexibility. You can find Nick at Metcalf_nutrition. You can find Josh at Josh Wiebert 90. That is Josh Wibaut 90. If you're not sure, have a look in your favorite podcast platform. You will see all of those handles listed there as well. So until next time, go eat the carbs. They won't make you fat.